Yes! Here we are on CITV reporting live from what I consider to be a very cold Denver, Colorado. It's in the 30s. I think that's cold. I was just having a discussion with someone from here who thinks that the dampness of Florida makes that colder. I don't know. I just know that I'm cold when I get here, and I tend to not be in Florida. We are about to start CI, in my opinion, I've said this before, I'll say it again, the best tournament of the year. There are 12 elite division teams. We're going to talk about each of those, give you a preview of each. But before I get there, I want to talk a little bit about Division 2. There are 13 teams in Division 2. I want to talk about some of them. 3 of them are from Woodside. There's Woodside Red, Woodside White, and Woodside Blue, which is a very patriotic way to go in honor of the Winter Olympics that are going on, I'm sure. But we have 3 Woodside teams. But there's some teams that only have a team in Division 2. Faith Baptist from California, First Baptist California, they have 2 teams. Heartland Christian from Nebraska, McQuantico, although they have had teams in the elite division before, this year their only team is a JV team in Division 2, and then Mountain View Baptist in California. So the Division 2 here has kind of taken on a different feel than many other tournaments where the Division 2 is merely middle school, elementary, younger kids. Here, there are those middle school and elementary kids, but there's also rookie teams or new teams, teams who don't yet feel like they can compete at the elite level, but they're in Division 2. So we're going to have a great Division 2 competition. I must admit I'm not as knowledgeable about Division 2 as I am about the elite division, but my prediction is you have teams at Temple, Kettle Moraine, and Woodside, aforementioned Woodside, are the 3 teams that have a team in the elite division and also have a team in Division 2. I think of those 3, 2 of those ministries will have teams in the top 3. I think you're going to get, at best, one of the teams that's just a Division 2 team into the final 3 of the Division 2, and I'm going to predict that team is going to be McQuantico. I could be wrong. It's happened before, but that's my prediction for Division 2. Don't have a lot to go with. Tonight, after the quizzes of the evening, we will have a recap, me and a co-host. We're going to talk about what we think looking forward. We'll be able to speak with a lot more knowledge at that point. Division 2 having been said, let's move on to the elite division where there are 12 teams from 10 ministries. Normally, you don't have 2 teams from a ministry in the elite division at this tournament because of the depth and how strong this tournament is. But we have 2 ministries that are checking out that kind of concept. Falls Baptist from Wisconsin and Temple from Tennessee. Temple from Tennessee is one of the top teams of the year. We've talked about that. They're ranked on BibleQuizzer.net. For those of you who follow the BibleQuizzer.net podcast, I am on loan from BibleQuizzer.net, as we like to say. But Temple is one of those top teams. They're splitting their team. They have Cullen and Ariana on the same team, which I think those are their 2 best quizzers. So I think they've made their number 1 team a little stronger. But what they've done is their next quizzers, who are Kendra, Grant, and Nathaniel, people who have done well in the past, people who have a lot of talent, a lot of potential, they're putting them on a team. I think, and I can't speak for Mr. Balka, but I'm sure he'll hear this and comment one way or the other. What I think they're trying to do is get those people to attempt to know what it's like to carry a team, maybe hoping that they bring together with Cullen and Ariana later in the year so that they will have a more dynamic team 1 to 5. That's my thoughts on it. I think Kendra and Grant particularly have a lot of potential. Nathaniel has a lot of potential also. But I think that team's going to not be towards the top. They're going to be towards the bottom. The other ministry with 2 teams, Falls 1 and 2, they've got a lot of quizzers. They've got Ben Sikma, John Mark Thompson, Jennifer Schilling, Maria Schilling, and Stephen Gilmore on their number 1 team. Their number 2 team has Abby Meyer, Kara Jager, Noelle Thompson, Caitlin Reinhart. I think both of those 2 teams are going to they're good teams, and anyone who comes to this tournament in the elite division particularly, you know they're a good team. Last year, I think we said we were talking about the 3 preceding years. In the 3 preceding years, the number of top 10 teams who don't come to this tournament in the 3 years total was like 4 teams. This is the tournament. Any team who wants to be recognized. This is the major that to me is separate. It's different. It's not one day. ACS is also not one day, but I think this is, in my mind, when you have your major tournaments like in tennis or golf or something like that, there's one that people esteem a little higher. This is it for me. I think this tells you who the best quiz team is, because in Squannet, you're going to beat more teams. There's going to be 25 teams there. But the thing about this tournament is you never have a quiz against – you never have a gimme quiz. Never have a quiz where this quiz, oh, we should win this quiz. This quiz should be okay. So with that in mind, I think Falls has good teams. I'm not going to put them in the top 5 at this tournament. We have the Z team, Bethel Calvary. They at this tournament, they like to go by Z team because it's all the Zemer kids. The green kids who have joined them for some of the year will not be at this tournament. So it's purely Zemer kids. Bethel Calvary, they're going to be a top 5 team. We're going to hear about them. We're going to see more about them later in the weekend. So I'm sure we'll talk about them more. A great team. It was pointed out when the rosters originally went out that Shelby and Tamara were listed on there twice. And someone said, well, that's kind of crazy. I said, well, that's because they want to get 12 questions each. And if they quiz out and can go back in, then they can get an additional 6. So, that team is very good, but it's also very top-heavy. You're not going to see West and Parker contribute in major ways, especially at this tournament. You go to Athens, they're going to have some good quizzes, possibly even quiz out a time or two, but you're not going to see them at this tournament get 3, 4, 5, 6 questions. You just don't have enough questions available with the strength of teams you have at this tournament. You have Woodside, David, Rebecca, Aaron, and Ian. That's a really, really good team. I had them ranked about 6th or 7th. What we're in, and now they're all deciding to look at me as I'm previewing them. But the Woodside team, I think that 6th to 7th ranking is appropriate. The question you always have at a tournament like this, you have it at Athens, you have it here. The question is, how does a team react to having that home advantage? And in the last BibleQuizzer.net podcast, we talked about that. What are the benefits of quizzing at your home territory? What are the detriments? And there's some of each. With the team as it is, I don't know how they're going to react to that. I don't know if they'll have their best quiz and perform a little bit better than I think they are, finish in the top 3 teams, or if they'll do a little bit worse, finish 8th, 9th, somewhere around there, or if they'll get right at where they are, 5th, 6th, 7th. That's something you never know. Now, you're saying, well, hey, this is a prediction show, Matt. Tell us your prediction. My prediction is going to be that they're going to do a little bit worse than they are. I think they're the 5th, 6th, 7th best team in the country. I think they're going to finish towards the bottom of that 7th, 8th, 9th. Not because I think they're poor. I just think it's hard for you to, and I talked about this last week in the BibleQuizzer.net podcast, it's hard to get up a little bit for a quiz that's at your home church, a place you go multiple times a week, and then you're having a big quiz there, and you're supposed to get as excited as people who are flying multiple time zones away through ice and snow and just a tremendous – I just don't think you can. I don't think it's going to happen. And so because of that, I'm picking them to do a little bit worse than I think they actually are. Temple, Tennessee, I talked about them. I think their number 1 team is a top 5 team, and we'll talk more about the top 5 teams in a second. Their number 2 team, I think they're going to finish towards the bottom half of the bracket. We have Scripture Home Educators. I know in the program has said Scripture Baptist. They are now known as the Scripture Home Educators, and they may even be going to a different name than that at some point. But for this tournament, Scripture Home Educators of Las Cruces, New Mexico. This is a team that has been together. They've been built off a program from the aforementioned Scripture. They have depth. This is, I say it's the biggest tournament of the year. I don't know that everyone buys into that, but here's what I know. This is the tournament they make it to year in and year out. This is the tournament where they make their stand and say, this is who we are. I talked in last week's BibleQuizzer.net podcast about a sweet spot of traveling distance. You have teams like Athens, who we're going to get to, and Bethel Calvary, who we've talked about, the Z team, who are traveling 20 hours, flying, wrecking their sleep schedules. They're going to get up for it in terms of it's a big event for them, unlike Woodside. But they also have some of the negative effects of that. I think Scripture for this tournament is in that sweet spot. It's a somewhere between a 6 and a 12-hour drive. I don't know exactly. And so they're in that distance where they're traveling. They're not moving over time zones. So they're functioning well in terms of how far to go. It's about a day trip away. It's a good, solid distance. I am picking Scripture, New Mexico, to finish towards the top half of the bracket, towards that 5th, 6th place, because of that sweet spot of travel. I think they're in that range. You've got Pleasant View from Kentucky. As far as programs go, a few years ago they had the best quiz team ever, which pains me to say because I think they dethroned my team. But Pleasant View, Kentucky is a phenomenal ministry when you're talking about how good their teams are. I believe that as you look at Pleasant View, Kentucky, this year, and they had 2 teams at Athens, they split up. I think if they put their best quizzers together, they put their best foot forward, this is a top 5 team at this tournament. They've got Joseph Coyle, Olivia Thoren, Anna Sanders, Ashley Hill, Jordan Crawford, Charity Voiles, Reagan Calloway. 8 quizzers on one team. I think they're going to put it together. I think they're going to get that done, and so I think they're a top 5 team here. Kettle Moraine, with the Fullers and and Becca Vanderplum, Hannah, Daniel, and Samuel Fuller, and Becca Vanderplum. That is a really good team, but again, everyone at this tournament's a good team. So I'm gonna go out on a limb. I picked them to finish in the top 3 at Athens. It burned me, so maybe I'm going the opposite way. I'm picking them to not finish in the top 5 here at Woodside and CI. You've got Hillsdale, the Florida team, Florida bias, go. You got Carly Carpole, Dylan Richards, Catherine Smith, Sarah Hernandez, and Will Smith. This is a team led by Kat Smith. Her brother Bobby, most of you know, best quizzer in the country a year ago. She's a top 5 quizzer this year, very good quizzer. She's not as dominant as her brother. And by that I mean, Bobby, it seemed like when he wanted to, made sure he always got up first. There was no question almost. We ran the stats on it, and when Bobby attempted to stand up first, he did stand up first in over 75% of the cases. Kat is more normal. She's not like superhuman like Bobby was. She does stand up first upon occasion, but it's not 75% of the time she tries. It's more in the normal range. The normal really good quizzer stands up first. About 20% of the time they attempt to stand up. So she falls in that range. So she's a good quizzer. She's not quite as dynamic as her brother was. She also doesn't make as many errors as Bobby did. She tends to be less errorful. Not to say she can't make errors, but Bobby could have a clunker of a quiz every now and then, although last year he kind of overcame that. But I think Kat is much less prone to have that quiz where she has 4 or 5 errors. So that's Hillsdale. I'm picking them to finish in the top 5. So for those of you keeping count, I've already got Bethel Calvary, the Z team, Temple 1, Hillsdale, and Pleasant View. You're like, where are we going to go from there? Well, that means some team like Heritage Mission or Athens, 2 teams who finish towards the top of the Athens New Year's Classic, is not going to finish there. It's not going to be Athens, in my opinion. I've got Heritage Mission not finishing in the top 5. They're a good team. They did very well at Athens. They pulled out a bunch of quizzes. I just feel like at this quiz, you can't get through off guile and strategy like they did at the New Year's Classic. The New Year's Classic, Heritage Mission would survive quizzes in a way that is very difficult to do, and they may do that. And if you go to the other majors, Squannet and AACS, I think they may do that again. The reason I don't think you can do it here is because every quiz includes 3 top 10 teams in the country. So in order to get by on guile and strategy, some people go the opposite way. They say because of the guile and strategy and because every quiz is a tough quiz, this is the tournament where they're going to shine the most. I go the other way on that. I think when you have you have 8 round robin quizzes where you're quizzing tough quizzes every time. Then you have tournament quizzes where you're getting through. I think at some point, the number of quizzes you have to have against good teams, you can't hold up. You can't. And so I think that a team who makes their way off what I call guile and strategy and quizzing smart, never beating themselves, That's a great thing to have, and it bodes well. And it's not a bad thing, but they don't have the dominance of the top teams this year. I'm picking them to finish in the next. So, reminder of those teams I've got finishing in the 6 to 8 category: Heritage Mission, Scripture, and I had Woodside, and then you've got the Falls and the Temple teams. That's the back half of that. That means I've got Athens in the top 5. They only brought 4 quizzers. It's my understanding they did not bring Chase Hakama, who's one of their potentially better quizzers, but they did bring Katie and Tony Davis. They did bring Dalton Croy, in my mind, the best quizzer in the country. I think this is a tournament where he shines. I mean, not that he doesn't shine in other tournaments, because he's always fantastic, but I think a tournament where every quiz is against tough top competition, I think this is a tournament where you're really, really going to see him shine. So, in a brief review of all the teams, I've got the top 5 as being Athens, Pleasant View, Hillsdale, Bethel Calvary, the Z team, and some team. I picked Scripture in there. Sorry, and I think I put Scripture 6 to 10 too. That was actually Kettle Moraine I should put there, but I'm sure I've misspoken many times. But those teams have got the top 5. So the way this tournament plays out, and we're going to go into a little bit of how this works out. You have 6 quizzes tonight, 2 round-robin quizzes tomorrow, and then a double elimination tournament. So it is survival of the best teams. The teams that are really, really good are going to survive. And I've got those teams as being Athens, Bethel Calvary, and Hillsdale. I don't have, despite, objection, well, Temple could be in there. But I'm just not picking them. I don't know what to say. I've got them finishing 4th. I picked them to finish 2nd or 3rd at Athens, and and they slightly underperformed, but they're a very good team. But I'm going with Hillsdale, Athens, and Bethel Calvary, the Z team, as the top 3 teams of this tournament. And I think those are the 3 it's going to come down to. And as it comes down to them, I think you're going to come down to those 3 teams. And I think that Dalton Croy is going to be the best quizzer in the country. He's going to lead them through. The best team. So here we are again, CI, and I know I'm going to talk about this much more when we do our mid-tournament recap on CI and when we do our post-tournament review, which will probably just be on BibleQuizzer.net podcast. As we look at these things, I think we're going to go over and over how great this tournament is. And again, with the separation of Elite Division and Division II, in most tournaments, they may put those 25 teams all together, and you would see teams, and you don't have the 8 round-robin quizzes at most tournaments. I think this tournament, more than any other tournament, separates the really, really, really good from the great. And I think we're going to see the great in this tournament being your Athens, your Hillsdale, your Z team, Bethel Calvary. Other teams, you may feel slighted. Maybe I'll have a different opinion when we do our Friday night recap tonight. But coming out of it, I'm picking those 3 teams to be in the top 3. Again, I think we have a great tournament here. I've got a Temple team that I've got not in the top 3. I finish in 4 or 5. I've got Scripture and Pleasant View finishing 5 and 6. Those spots are usually a tie for 5th, is usually how it works out in these tournaments. We got Heritage Mission. I got finishing below that. Woodside, who I said they're going to do a little poor because it's their home carpet, and I think there's a little bit of disadvantage to that. We've got the Temple 2 team and the 2 Falls teams, and I think that rounds it out. So that's how this Matt West, on loan from BibleQuizzer.net's podcast, performing now for CI TV. That's how I have it coming down. I'm sure to be wrong. Email me, podcast@BibleQuizzer.net. John O'Parker is going to be filling this chair most of the time during CITV. Hopefully I'll join him. We'll have a few other guest stars doing some stuff. Stay tuned to CITV. It's a great tournament. You get a glimpse of what's great. And after you see it this year, make plans to come out here next year. I don't care how cold it is. As I said, this is the best quizzing tournament. But even if the quizzing were not that good, best tournament for fellowship in the country. This is the place to be. I'm so glad to be here in Denver, Colorado on what I consider to be a cold day. This has been the CITV preview of CI 2014. See ya.